This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, tonight we're talking about politics, the psychology of why people get so stressed out and angry over politics. You know what I'm talking about. You know how stressed out you probably get. You know how stressed out your friends get. You know how stressed out people get over politics in general. You know, why is it that we have a tendency of getting so stressed out when it comes to politics? Like, this is something that's unbelievable. I mean, we can get so stressed out, so angry, so bent out of shape in just a couple of minutes. Why is that? And so I decided to really ponder that on tonight's show, because I think sometimes even more interesting than the politics itself is the psychology behind the issues for the reasons why it upsets us. Because I think once we're able to understand the psychology of the reasons why certain things upset us, we can actually begin to form good, knowledgeable concepts and maybe a good way of dealing with things. Breadcrumb idea, you might say. You know, it's interesting because when we realize why we get upset, we usually are able to pinpoint exactly how and why and what we can do to change that. That's across the board with anything we're talking about. So on tonight's show, we're talking about the psychology of why people get stressed out and utterly angry over politics. And, you know, I want to begin this conversation with talking about smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors, really? You know, I like to call it AKA pomp and circumstance. Yes, it's all pomp and it's all a little bit of circumstance. Not circumstantial evidence, just pomp and circumstance. So let's talk about that pomp and circumstance, because I think that this particular avenue, the smoke and mirrors, you might say, the old twig and berries, these things can really upset people. Think about it. Why can it upset people? It upsets people because they don't know what to do. It seems larger than life. And I want to talk about some details about this pomp and circumstance, because I think it's something that all of us have dealt with at one time or another. And it's normally been when we least expect it. The last time that I dealt with pomp and circumstance, as I like to say, was a few years back before the last presidential election. And I was actually flying out to LA to do some work. For a lot of people that know me, they know that I work a lot here in Texas, and I also work out in California, and I get some work done there as well. And I work all over the country, but these are the two specific places that I spend a lot of my time at. And so I was about to fly out. The flight was about to leave, about 10, 15 more minutes for people to get in their seats and get their items into the overhead bins properly, secure your items, put your small handbags underneath the seat in front of you, unless you're in the bulkheads, and you can't do that. And so while we're waiting to take off before they've told us that there's no cell activity allowed, I was sitting there and I was sitting in one of the bulkheads, so I needed to put all my items, but I had my phone. And the phone rings, and it's a friend of mine, Lori, out in L.A. that was supposed to pick me up at the airport. I'm like, oh, this is great. Hey, can't wait to see you. And she's like, yeah, I can't either. Wait to see you, that is, but I got some bad news. I'm like, what? What's the bad news? Okay. Go on and spill it. I don't like it when people just leave you hanging with the bad news thing. I got some bad news, Ashley. Pause, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. You're like, just spill it already. I mean, what's the bad news? You can't pick me up. You got malaria. Something bad happened. You don't want to talk to me anymore. I mean, all these thoughts are racing through your head. She goes, no, I got to tell you, you couldn't be flying in to LAX at a worse time. And I said, oh my God, what's happened? What's going on? I mean, if it's something really bad, they're not going to fly us out there. What happened, Lori? For God's sakes. She said, well, at the time that you're supposed to land is within a 5-minute landing time of the President of the United States in Air Force One, I believe. And because of that, it might be really, really tough getting out of the airport. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean it's going to be tough getting out of the airport? Well, she said, first off, if they land ahead of you and everybody's out of the plane, everything's done, then you can probably land. I was like, what do you mean I can't land? She goes, but even if you land later and all that stuff happens, they're going to close down the 405. Say what? Say what? They're closing down the 405? And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, the 405 is one of the biggest highways in LA. This is the end-all, be-all highway. And to close down a highway of that magnitude, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Like, business around that area just stops. It just stops. There's nowhere for it to go because people can't go anywhere. There's so much congestion and so many people in LA without the highway. Oh, my gosh. I can't even stress how bad it is. And I said, you know what, Lori, I normally have good luck. And she goes, Ashley, I don't know about luck in this situation. I mean, it's pretty much destined that you're about to land the same exact time as he is. And you're you, and he's the president. And he's going the same direction that we need to go to get to your hotel before that meeting. So I said, okay, Lori, you've given me some really great bad news that I can deal with for the next 3 hours on the flight. They're telling me I have to turn off my phone. I can't wait to see you, too. Flight lands a few minutes late. For whatever reasons. Get off the flight, go down to the baggage claim. And something inside of me just told me that rushing through the baggage claim is just not what you need to do. I had like a sense of calm like you wouldn't believe. I felt like I had just gone back in time. I literally sashayed to the baggage claim, hoping, I think in my head, that they might have put my bag on a later flight, that I might have to stay there a little longer. As I get out of the airport, and my bag came off first this time. Came off first this time. I can't believe it. It's like winning the lottery backwards, right? Came off first. Walk outside, walk across the street where they can actually park. She had parked the car. Because otherwise, at LAX, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, you can't be stopped more than a couple of seconds without the police and the security telling you to go on. So we get in the car, and she goes, yeah, it's worse than I thought. They've shut down the 405 all the way down towards Sunset area. We're going to have to figure out how to get there. And I said, well, you live here. You can figure it out. So she gets in the driver's seat, and we head on our way. An hour and 30 minutes later, we had gone a total of about 1.5 miles. 1.5 miles, folks. And you know what? 1.5 miles, wow. And an hour and a half, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. You know why it's tough? You have all these these fumes coming out of the cars in front of you, and you're right behind them, and it's hard to breathe. And I'm one of those kind of people that I actually get car sick a little bit. Not all the time, but when it's those fumes, and I've been in the car for an hour and a half, and I've gone 1.5 miles, that's how I feel. I feel grumpy. I'm like the grumpus. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm not happy. I'm inconsolable. Okay, maybe not that bad, but I'm not in a good mood. And so I finally looked at Lori when it hit about 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I said, let's pull over. Let's pull over and let's let Ashley drive. I'm one of those kind of drivers, okay? And people can attest to this. You can go ask people, and they will say, yes, indeed, Ashley is being totally honest. Okay, this is Authentic Talk Radio here. Remember, this is judgment-free zone. We say it the way it is. I'm one of those kind of people that I actually paid off a a cab driver in Mexico because I couldn't give directions because we were having to go down dirt roads, but I knew how to get there. I didn't know enough Spanish, though, because I knew that he was a little scared. He thought I was trying to steal his cab. We made it all work out, but I got us to where we needed to go without trying to explain that I didn't have any street names, that we needed to go down some dirt roads. With that said, I get in the driver's seat. It's time for Ashley to shine. The 405 might be closed because the president is trying to raise more money for his election, but I'm going to get to my hotel in time to check in and to make my meeting. Yeah, well, anyway, I did pretty good. It only took me an additional hour and a half to go, about 8 miles. I did really well. Maybe an hour 45. Okay, so basically, I landed at 4:45 in the p.m., okay, and we got to the hotel by about 8:15. I did really good, though, on timing. You have to admit, I tripled the mileage, And the thing is that I think that this upsets people because this is a lot of pomp and circumstance. You don't fly into LAX to go to a meeting to try to drop off your stuff at the hotel, and the 405's closed down because the president shut it down because they're raising money for his next election. That just seems wrong. And I'm not saying politically on one side or another. They do this all the time. They've done this throughout history. It seems like they do it more and more nowadays. However, it's like, this is enough. Isn't a motorcade and maybe a backup of like a half a mile okay? Come on, folks. Come on. And that's how I feel. And I think that a lot of people nowadays get really stressed out and upset about the fact that there's so much pomp and circumstance. We as individuals, they don't close down the highway when we go to work. Well, Ashley Burgess, she's the star pupil at work. And, if she's got perfect attendance, we need to close down the highway. I think a lot of times we feel really small. Small because they're closing down the highway for them. Then what are we getting? We're getting nothing. We're getting squat. When we return, we're going to be talking more about the pomp and circumstance, the smoke and mirrors, as well as getting into a concept of profits versus taxes. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we're talking about the psychology of why people get stressed out and angry over politics. I think a lot of times we talk about politics, and we talk about this side, and we talk about that side, but we don't really talk about the psychology of the reasons why a lot of us get stressed out and angry. And right before the break, I was talking about smoke and mirrors, a.k.a. pomp and circumstance effect. And I was telling you about the last time that I've been in LA constantly, but the last time that they actually closed off the 405 highway because our current president was raising money for a re-election. Okay, this is a few years back. And I had landed about the same time as him, and my friend had called before the flight had left and told me the bad news. I thought her mother had died. And she told me, she's like, it couldn't be a worse time for you to be landing at LAX. It's awful, it's awful, it's awful. Oh, gosh, I don't know. You know what? She was right. It was bad. It was really bad. Yes, and I did miss my meeting. And it took us a good long time to get to the hotel that was less than T-minus 9 miles from the airport. 9 miles. Not even 9 miles, but 9 miles from the airport. Let's round it up a little bit. Man, we landed at 4:45. I think we arrived about 8:45. All this pomp and circumstance. I mean, what happened to the fact of having a motorcade? I mean, come on. I mean, even if you close it down for a quarter of a mile, that should be okay, but you're closing down the whole highway. This is insane. And I think that's one of the things that really stresses people out and angers them, is because there's such this hierarchy of needs for certain political folks, while other people feel like, hey, we're doing all this work. We're the little people here. But what do we get out of life? We get a Budweiser when we get home? I get a couple of Budweiser cans of Budweiser and I call it a day? I mean, come on. Where is the equality here? I think it's a big deal because it's like it kind of enrages people, because it's like politics and political people are there for the people. Well, that's what the establishment was based upon, is for them to be there for the people, to help pass laws and to help make things happen for the people. And I think when you make such a divide, it's almost like having, the Queen Elizabeth here. It's like having a monarch where, I'm surprised, I'm glad they don't close down the city. I'm glad that we're allowed to leave our houses that day. It gets like that, and I think people get overwhelmed by it because there's just such a stratosphere difference between being a common folk and being at a certain level, and I think that's what really angers people. The next concept that I think disappoints people, angers them, and really stresses them out, because, we all get stressed out about money and the concept of profits versus taxes. And I think this is something that stresses out and angers people to no end, because they're trying to make money. They're trying to take care of their family, put food on the table, pay the car payments, pay the mortgage, put the kids through school, depending on their area of town, either public school or private school, depending. I mean, because, we're not putting a lot of money into the education system. So, you got to think about, where's your kid going to get the most education? I mean, I know some moms and even some dads that come into my sessions. By the way, most of y'all know that I'm a therapist and a life coach. They come into my sessions and they say, man, I'm working 2 jobs, trying to do everything I can right now. Got the kids schooling and their tuition, and they told me some of these tuition payments, and I'm like, man, these kids are in middle school. And so a lot of people are out there, and I can vouch for this myself, as profits versus taxes is a difficult thing. It really is. And there's got to be a better system. And I know that this enrages people and stresses them out because they look at all the time that they spend at work. And the American system is an interesting system to look at, because we don't have the same system as Europe has as far as the holiday season. Think about it. I mean, Europe has certain holidays that are unbelievable. I mean, they have way more holidays than we do. I mean, most of us listening, I think most of you listening tonight might have maybe 2 weeks of vacation at work. I mean, 2 weeks, that's 2 weeks. That's not a lot of time. And in Europe, they laugh at us. They go, my gosh, I'm surprised people aren't, committing suicide more, having to go into psychiatric, situations and systems based on their mental anguish. They're overtaxing their mind and their stress level. And that's why I talk to a lot of corporations about having me in for coaching, is because it's the whole person. You can't just sit there and coach to the employee, because the employee, by the way, is a person too. They're a person too. They have to work at the company. They work at the company. They choose to work at the company, better yet. Normally, most of them are married, raising children, paying for stuff, trying to take care of things. And it seems like the older we get, the less our money seems to go. And it seems like more of us are getting taxed. If not getting taxed, we're getting audited. Even if you're paying taxes, you're getting audited by the IRS. I mean, it's unbelievable. We were over there going, my God, where does my money go? I mean, I work all this time. One of the stories I hear a lot by my clients, and I'm working on a project around this too, is just the whole concept of waking up early in the morning, not getting enough sleep. Okay? You're not getting enough sleep. Your husband goes to work. You get the kids ready. And you got to go to work too. You get it ready. You dress up. You get in your suit. You get in your outfit. You get in your dress. You get the kids in the car. You drive them over to the school. Now, you're lucky if you only have to drop them off at one school. I mean, most people have to drop their kids off at two different schools, at least because of the age difference. Or maybe one child is in a special school because they need a little bit more help with reading or what have you. Think about it. And you wait in line, in the car line. You drop the kids off at school. And then you rush because you have to time all this out just perfectly. And you got to have repetition to get this right. And even some of y'all, it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm not going to say that it's easy. And you get to work. You hope you get a spot that's close enough that you're not hiking. I mean, for men out there, you understand that us women, most of us try to be presentable and wear some heels sometimes. Heels are painful when you're walking from the very back of the parking lot or from the 5th floor of the parking garage down to the lobby, back up in the elevator. It gets a little time consuming and a little taxing. And then you get there at work, you got all this work going on. The next thing you know, you got your husband calling, your kids calling, asking how you're doing. You look outside, you realize it's dark outside and it's 8 o'clock at night. By the time you get home, the kids are already asleep. You feel like you're missing the best years of your life with those kids. You go in there, you kiss them on the forehead. Your husband's like, "It's okay, honey. How was work doing? How was work? I went on and made dinner, what have you." And he's been at work the whole time too. But he had to go pick up the kids because y'all have an agreement. You take the kids, he picks up the kids, or vice versa. This could be vice versa. You could be the husband getting home late at night. Your wife's made dinner. Kids are already asleep, and there you are again. You're missing the kids. I mean, what's going to happen when they're not young anymore? Maybe they're not young anymore now, and you feel like you've lost a lot of time. And there you are. If you're the woman, you go grab a glass of wine, or a man, you grab a beer out of the refrigerator, and you sit there and you watch TV for a little while, and you wonder about what's happening with my life. You spend 30 minutes on the couch. It's already 10:30. You got to do all this over again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And it gets taxing. Not to mention the taxes you have to pay on everything you make. And you only get those 2 weeks of paid vacation. That's it. No more. This isn't Europe. Where do you think you are? And I think that a lot of times when people are upset with our country, you have all these foreign countries that they claim are upset with us. They don't really realize how hard Americans have to work. They just don't. This isn't easy breezy. I mean, most of y'all don't like putting on the suit every single morning. And most of you aren't like loving going to work at 7 a.m. and doing this over and over and over again. Some of us love our job, but there is a level, okay, of feeling overworked and overtaxed and feeling that there's got to be a better system. There's got to be a better system. Isn't there going to be a better system where everybody is equal to some degree and nobody's being penalized or nobody's getting let out of the system completely? And I think that we have to sit there and look at that. And I know that that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest key issues why people get so angry and so stressed out about politics, because they feel that they work so hard day after day, week after week, year after heavenly year, and how much farther have they come? And it's like some of us, for example, I know personally people that they pay all their taxes, they pay more than they should, and the next thing you know, they're getting audited by the IRS. I mean, life's difficult enough, right? And, it's hard because you sit there and you work and you work and you work, and, 35% or more goes back to the government. That's fine. I understand that there's things that need to be done, but there's got to be a better way. And I think that that's what a lot of people get angry about, because we all have a lot of good ideas. And I remember that the government was supposed to be set up for the people, right? That was in the beginning. It's supposed to be set up for the people, by the people. And they're supposed to pass and do things that we, as a society, wants to have done. And to me, it makes sense to figure out the tax system, because when we figure out the tax system, we figure out the citizenship system, we figure out a lot of systems that we put a lot of agencies to that maybe we wouldn't have to so much if everybody just had to pay a certain portion. Because I think it would change up the game plan if everybody felt like, hey, I'm putting mine in. I'm not putting more than I need to. I'm putting just the just amount. So when we return, we'll be talking more about profits versus taxes, as well as what's good for the goose. Is that also good for the gander or not? Stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we're talking about the psychology of why people get stressed out and angry over politics. Yes, we're talking about psychology and politics, the two P words. Da da da. Okay, so think about it. A lot of times we talk about politics and laws and regulations and who said this and who said that and who went up and did a filibuster yesterday and why this is right and who voted on that. But let's talk about the psychology of it. Let's talk about the psychology of why people feel stressed and angry over politics. Because a lot of people are very stressed and angry and feel upset, even depressed over what's going on. And right before the break, we were talking about profits versus taxes, aka what's a better system. And I know that a lot of people feel overwhelmed by the present system we have. You feel like you work all the time, like when I was painting you that picture earlier, right? I have several clients that voice this all the time. You know, literally, you leave in the morning where it's dark. You come back at night and it's dark. And I'm talking in the summer too, okay? And you feel like you're hardly even seeing your kids grow up, and maybe they've already grown up and you're kind of resentful about that. You kind of may be resentful about the fact that, hey, you like your spouse a lot, you love them, but you don't see them that much. And maybe the only time you ever get around them is by the time you've had the second, Chivas and soda or Scotch and soda, and you're maybe closer to 3 sheets to the wind and not really having that deep of a discussion. And, honey, I'll see you in the morning. Just to take the stress off. And I know a lot of people out there know what I'm talking about. You work every day. You do what you got to do. You pay your dues. You pay your taxes. And you feel like there's got to be a better system. I know that Europe has all this vacation time. And I know that there's other countries that supposedly don't like us. But I think if they realized how hard the work ethic is and how much work ethic is important to the Americans, they would understand. I mean, Americans work harder, I think, than any other country. And I'm not talking about sweatshops and stuff like that in China. Let's not get into that. But I'm talking about day for day working with a work ethic and doing everything they can to better their life. And, it's interesting how in this day and age, it doesn't seem like working and taking care of your family is really ever rewarded. It almost seems the opposite, doesn't it? Doesn't it for some of us where you feel like you do everything you can and you feel like you're still getting kicked in the face? And I think there has to be a better system, because I think that if we looked at everybody overall and realized that, what if there was a flat tax system? Just an idea, just a thought. A system that somehow or not could be calculated a certain way with a flat tax. Everybody puts in a certain amount, percentage of your income. What is it, 10%? I mean, think about it. I mean, nowadays with all the different laws and everything changing, they're talking about legalizing marijuana and what have you. I mean, the Colorado alone has made a lot of tax money. Think about how much the states could make for tax money alone just on that one product. Think about it. And then if they were just to do a flat tax, a flat U.S. tax, just an idea, just a thought. But I think that a lot of us have these thoughts. How to make the system better thoughts. And we sit down and talk with our friends sometimes, right? Have a few to drink, and you sit down and you get to talk with your friends on a good Saturday night. Occasionally, maybe once a month, you get together. For the guys, you might have a cigar maybe and sit outside under the stars. Ponder what life would be like if the government was just a little better run. If things got done justly. If we felt like our money was being spent properly. Think about it. That's where a lot of our stress comes from, is we feel like our voice doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the mighty dollar. They're going to take that anyway. But what we have to say doesn't really matter. And I feel people have gotten not only complacent, but really so stressed out about it that it's almost like PTSD. It's almost like they've had governmental PTSD. Because every time they want to do something, every time they think of a good idea, And on top of that, it seems like the government does the opposite. And I'm not saying that everybody in the government's wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of antiquated systems that maybe could be updated for the better of all concerned. Right? Isn't that what life's supposed to be about bettering things? Isn't that what we're supposed to do, is to become better? To become better at what we do? To become smarter? To become faster? To become stronger? And it's funny because, I have a company, and I have a media company within my company, within therapy and coaching. And if I was to not show up one day, nothing would get done. You see what I'm saying? If I was to put all my money into, I don't know, let's just make up something. Okay, I find something old and run down, and I put all my money into that, and I'm not putting money back into my company. Well, probably going to go bankrupt. There's nobody going to be able to bail Ashley out now. And I feel like it's kind of like we all think, some of us think, not all of us, but some of us think that the government has been that person, that friend of ours that we're constantly bailing out. Mm-hmm. They never really listen to us, but we're constantly handing over the money. We've all had that friend. I mean, most of us have grown up. If you've been listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess for the last 3 years, you know that person is an energy sucker. And you also realize that there's some people that will always take that. Will always take your money, will never change, because if you're constantly giving the money to them, why do they have to change? They don't. They'll just expect it the next month, and the next month, and the next month, and the month after that. And eventually you might as well just take them on as a dependent. Sad thing is you can't write them off on your taxes because you're not married and they're not your kids, and, it's just your friend that takes advantage of you. And I feel like that's how a lot of us feel. Is we feel like we do all this work, we put in all this time and all this energy, and we don't know if we're getting anything out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, when was the last time you used a lot of when was the last time you used some public systems? When was the last time that you used a process or a system that your tax money pays for? I want you to think about that right now. Because I'm brainstorming right now and I can't think of what I need to be thinking of. Maybe it's because I haven't used a lot of that stuff lately. I mean, I remember one thing that's really kind of upset me recently is just the healthcare stuff. Because I had this great policy last year. Well, I mean, it wasn't great, okay, but it was good. It was better. Let's put it that way. It was better. The word better is good because it's better's better. And this year, it was the deductible was doubled and copay is astronomical. And it's like, there we go again. And that's another payment that comes out every month. It just flies right out the window. And I think that a lot of us, especially us at work and take care of our lives and take care of our families, feel, burn out. Nobody's listening. What's going on? I thought this was for the people, by the people, for the people. I thought that's what it was about, but it doesn't really seem like that to me. It doesn't seem that way. It seems not like that. Was it really ever like that? And maybe it was, but it doesn't really feel like it's been like that in my lifetime. It doesn't. And I think there's been some good leaders here and there on both sides. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to bash right now anybody. I'm just talking about the system as itself. I mean, it just seems kind of interesting because of the taxes. And I mean, you would think that we could come up with a better system. I mean, we're supposed to be like the smartest, the most innovative. You would think we could come up with a system that would be effective on all levels. A system of taxes that would actually apply to everybody. It's interesting, even immigrants, even illegal immigrants, I think would be paying taxes if they could stay in the country. I think that's interesting too, because there's a lot of people out there that want citizenship and they're willing to pay. But, you got all this other stuff going on. Think about it. You got all these agencies and stuff to help with illegal aliens, to do this, to do that. But, there's certain systems that if put into place, those systems could efficiently kind of go in the distance or go away for a little while. Or maybe never come back. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's all about money. I get it. And infrastructure. I understand that. And we don't want infrastructure to crumble and fall. We need to keep things new and keep things alive. But at the same time, the government is supposed to be there for its people, not the people for the government. It almost feels like you have an IV hooked up to your arm that goes directly to the government. But the IV is shooting out green money. It's your tax money. And it's an interesting concept because I think we all sit there and think about these things and ponder these things. I can think about several instances. I woke up this morning thinking about it. And I know that before I get home, somebody's going to call me and talk to me about something that happened recently in the news. What happened today, what happened tonight, and about how helpless people feel. And it's interesting because I think people feel helpless, and that's why there is people that do not show up to the voter polls to vote because they don't think that anybody really stands for what they believe in, or they don't think that they'll be listened to. And I think that's why you have voter apathy. It's because people don't feel like they are being listened to. Quite the contrary, actually. They feel like there's no reason for us to be there. They wonder what lies are going to be told next to get them to vote for somebody. And consequently, they don't want to vote for anything because they don't trust anybody. And then you have a whole group of voters that have no idea what's even going on. And they vote for whoever, and then later on, they get upset. And you're like, but you voted for them. It was you voted for them. And they're like, well, I didn't know what I was voting for. And so we have this whole system of the uneducated voting, and then you have a whole system of other people with apathy voting. Then you got a few of the people in between that are voting because they think they're doing the best they can. And then you got that whole other group that says, well, I'm voting for the least of the worst evil. My God. Is that what this has come to? I'm voting for the least of the worst evil? Holy crow. I mean, that's awful. When we get to the point where I'm voting for the least of the worst evil, I mean, we might as well pack up shop. And I mean, how many of you have heard people say that? How many of you have said that? I've even said that. I mean, come on. How many of you have even thought about writing somebody in before? You know it'll be just you and a few other people that write them in, but you actually think about it. But then you go, that's just a waste of my time. And that's where I think a lot of people are at. The least of the worst evil. And that's what leads us to that. Kind of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Or is it good for the goose or is it not good for the gander? But even more so, I'm voting for the least of the worst evil. Wow. What about leadership? What happened? And I think that there's a large disconnect because there is a need for leadership more than ever before. There's a need for leaders. There's a need for people that can be honest and truthful and can stand up and step up to the plate and help lead this country to another level. And I know there's leaders out there. And I know that there's people out there that want to do good. And I know that there's people out there that want to do good and have a plan and need it to be out there. Where are they? And what are we doing? And I think we need to somehow or not make the connect, get rid of this disconnect, get rid of this overstressed, apathetic situation, because I think we're at that point where we feel like nothing can change. What's ever going to change? Nobody ever listens. The system is the same as it's been. Why are they cutting into my program to show the president playing basketball? I think that we get to that point where you just go, my gosh, there's so much going on that we don't even talk about. I mean, think about the news. I recently did a show. I'm 7 days a week, if you didn't know. 7 days a week. You hear me Sunday through Sunday. And I recently did a show about causes. What's the most important cause to you? And what can you do about it? And I think that a lot of us, the same as politics, is we get overwhelmed by causes because we don't know where to begin. We don't know where to begin or what to do or how to change the system because we're overwhelmed by the system. We're overwhelmed. But first off, you have to pick a cause. And one of the causes I was talking about is Fukushima. I was talking about radiation and the radiation in the Pacific Ocean and the contamination that this has caused. And this is something that is a very important thing that's happening that we rarely hear about on the news, if ever. And I think that that's how people feel. A lot of people feel like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors because they feel like they're not actually getting the news that they need to get. I mean, think about it. I mean, how many times have you turned on the news and they have something about, Kanye West and the Kardashians? Or about Bruce Jenner? And you go, well, I know there's more going on in this country than Bruce Jenner getting a sex change. God bless his heart. But I know there's more than that. I mean, and I'll be honest with y'all. Maybe it's because I'm intuitive. Maybe it's because I'm a therapist. But even when I was a young kid and his pictures were on the Wheaties boxes, he looked like a woman to me. I'm just going to be straight up honest. I mean, sometimes, guys, you got to look past the image and actually see the person. I mean, I think there's been a cry for help for years. I don't know about y'all, but maybe I'm just really super intuitive. However, it's like sometimes we feel like we're not even getting fed any information. We're just getting the puff pastry information. Seriously, this puffy news that we feel like we're getting no information. And I think a lot of times, too, we feel like politically, our politicians and people that are supposed to be there for us are disconnected from the real issues, or they don't want to deal with the real issues, or they aren't the voice of the people. When we return, we'll be talking more about what's good for the goose, as well as also just the dynamics of the reasons people are stressed and what you can begin to do about stress in politics. So stay tuned, because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 seconds.
You could be my luck. Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we've been talking about the psychology of why people get stressed out and angry over politics. It's just the way life is. It's the two P's, honestly, politics and psychology of politics. And we're talking about this tonight because I think it's very important, because I think a lot of people get very stressed out, very angry, very upset about what's going on in the world around us, especially in our country. The rules and the regulations, the pomp and the circumstance, the smoke and mirrors. You know, also, what about the profits versus the taxes? I mean, most of us think that there could be definitely a better system in place. I mean, our system has been so out of whack, so archaic, that there comes a time when we need to change it. The tax system is about as antiquated as our prison system. Okay? And there's got to be some changes that come to play. I mean, because in the prison system, you know what? I hate to be honest about this, but I'm always authentic, so it's going to come out. The prison system, for most of us, we don't have to deal with it. We don't have to see it. We don't know anybody in prison, and you can act like it doesn't even exist. Because most of us aren't in the prison system. We're not in the system in that regards. We're able to kind of act like it doesn't exist. We're able to kind of like, wash that from our minds. However, the tax system is a different thing. And they're both so antiquated. They're both so obsolete. Okay, but the taxes we all have to deal with. Everybody that's paying taxes has to deal with the system. And is it easy to act like it doesn't exist? No. No, it's not. No, you get to think about this on a daily basis, at least every single time you get your paycheck. You get to see off to the side what's been taken out, right? And a lot of us are having to pay a lot more for health care now, too. So we realize that we're having to pay more for health care as well. So we know that that's being taken out, too. Okay? And we're getting less for it, right? Yeah, I had to get a procedure done recently. And, yeah, I didn't realize my deductible was $3,000. Yeah, it was $1,500 last year, but it's $3,000 now. And I'm not saying one way or another. All I'm just saying is that that's a large hike, and that's coming out of my pocket too, right? So a lot of us sit there and go, okay, well, I'm paying for health care, I'm paying my taxes, I'm paying my car payment, I'm paying for my kids to go to school, I'm paying for this, I'm paying for that. Okay, got all this going on. And a lot of us go home and we go, oh, where's the money? I want to take a vacation. I mean, I was just thinking about that the other day. I wanted to go out of town. My birthday's coming up, and I wanted to take a vacation. And I started with high hopes. High hopes, we got high hopes. We got high apple sky and the pie hopes. Yes, I had apple pie hopes. Sky hopes. Sky pie and the sky hopes, right? Really? So I had these hopes. I was looking at an island trip and this and that. Ooh, I might go out to Belize. Ooh, yeah, baby. Well, now I'm looking at Marfa, Texas, I think. And that's a nice area, I'll tell you, but I can drive there because now I'm equating the gas. And well, I looked at the tickets on the flights and that sort of thing. And so I pulled back from there. Looked over at Boston, too, thought about that. Yeah, that the flights are pretty expensive. Pulled out from that idea. Now I'm probably going to take a little road trip in Texas and, and then I'm starting to think, well, maybe it's just not the right time to go. Maybe I should just wait. I mean, And we get that way because we look at the bottom line and we go, golly. I mean, I work my butt off. I mean, some of us are working 80-hour weeks, right? Right? And it's like, I get it. I mean, there's a little bit of quality of life, but you'd like a little bit more. Just a little bit more. I mean, it would be nice to have just a little bit more flexibility, a little more money in that paycheck, a little more of that return, right? Tax return. I mean, instead, some of us just get screwed. You just wake up one day, you go to the post office, and the IRS says, they're auditing you. Yep. You're like, man, golly. It's like having the relative that comes to stay that decides to stay for 7 months. I have a friend of mine. It's kind of funny, actually. I'll share this right now. A friend of mine, he's engaged, and his wife's mother is in China, wants to come over. And so the other day she was supposed to come in for 2 months, and now she's coming in July 4th and will be leaving on December 29th. They live in a 1-bedroom condominium. That's going to be a blast. But no, it's kind of like that. You've done so much. I mean, isn't that enough? But now you want to stay for 5-6 months? My Lord. And you want to stay the full time of the visa there. So I think people are very stressed out over politics because they just feel like their voice isn't heard. I think a lot of us out here have some really good ideas of how to strengthen our government, how to make things work, how to change the system, how to make it work for us, how the government can still get their money, but it can be in a more effective system where we feel like we have more of a say. So let's talk about what we can do, what you can do, what I can do on a daily basis to lower my stress level about politics and to kind of get to more of a place where we want to be. I think the first thing we have to do, and this goes across the board with lots of issues, is you want to get a notebook and write down what it is that you would like to see changed. In order for things to change, you have to know what you need to see changed. You have to know what needs to be changed. So let's write that down first. Let's discuss it. Let's write it down. Let's orchestrate our thoughts. Any well thought out plan is a lot better plan than one that's not thought out, right? Okay, so we write down these thoughts of the things that we want to change. And then I think the second thing is that you find other people that feel the same way. Because normally we hang out with people that have some of the same ideologies, same thought processes. And I'm not saying that it has to be a label, because I don't agree with all labels. So I wouldn't go all with the label, but I'd go with the thought process, the philosophy, really. And find other people that are like-minded. And have some sort of discussions. Make your own little town meetings. Organize your thoughts. Okay, and so when you find these like-minded people, which is so cool, you realize that there's other people out there that feel like you do. You don't feel so contained. You don't feel so divided from other people. There is a springboard that you found in other human beings. And that springboard allows you to feel better because you realize that other people care about what's happening. They're not all apathetic. They haven't all given up. And they actually have some good ideas. And I think good ideas are better than doctrines because you can always change or tweak an idea. Okay? So we find other like-minded people that we can talk to, that you can debate, that you can agree to, that you can debate with, that you can help be more knowledgeable, that you can do some investigation, that you can do research to find what you're looking for. Research to back up what you want to do. And you can then begin to organize a group, a collective, mind you. Organize a collective that you can actually talk with. And you can begin to get your voice heard. And so once you write down those ideas and you find other like-minded people and you begin to have meetings and you organize your thoughts, you can begin to eventually organize in such a pattern that it's more than just you. And then you can begin to get your voice heard. This goes a long way to lowering stress levels and goes a long way to lowering your anger and anxiety. Because when you realize that other people feel the same way and you find other people, it's not just you against the world. It's you with a group that can help educate other voters and other people to find a better way. Look forward to next episode of Perspectives. And I hope that this helps you to understand more of the psychology of politics, why we feel stressed, and what you can definitely begin to do about it. Because you definitely have a voice and you have a choice. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 3 shakes.